Welcome to the IDK WTF podcast with David B.
And Anastasia Button, and today we have an awesome little guest here today, which you just got in the intro, and I'm really excited to bring this guy on for you guys because he is the subject matter expert in anything money and really relationship with money and how you can move forward with money to be a partner rather than something you're striving for or lack thereof. And so we're really excited to bring in Trevor. Thank you so much for being with us, Trevor.
What's up?
So honored to be here. Thank you very much, David. Thank you very much, Anastasia. Because I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing with the relationship of money, and yet I'm an expert at it, and my expertise just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. So no matter where anybody is today, just know that it's a journey. So, and I'm looking forward to sharing and answering any questions that you have, because when you have that relationship with money, everything changes. Everything changes. So
Totally. Well, thanks so much for being here. For our guests who may not know you yet and haven't kind of seen some of your background, why don't you give us a quick overview of kind of who you are and what you do?
awesome. So I came from the middle of nowhere, had nothing, and my mom was an accountant. I got moved to California, decided to be a doctor because back where I grew up, it was like you either are going to work a dead end job or you're going to get out of town. And so I got out of town. I rode on a motorcycle and went to California and decided to become a doctor. And after many years, and I could go to any medical school I wanted to, I decided not to, and had this really interesting early life crisis of spending all this time. I took a decent amount of time between high school and college that I knew that's what I wanted to be, right? And then the world blew up. It was the Great Recession. There was no jobs. I was switching to a nursing career versus doctor path, and there was
Back in 2008, right?
2009, yeah, 2008, 2009, and like I had to take all these classes to get in the nursing field, and there was a weird year-long wait that I could get into the classes and then get in nursing school. So I ended up getting in the finance and insurance industry because they were the only place that was hiring. It was like, wait a second, you're telling me you will hire me for nothing? I'll get to smile and dial on Monday and hustle like nobody's ever hustled before. And if it's going to be, it's up to me and it's 100% commission. Sure, I'm totally in because I don't know what I'm doing. Right. This is my first like job out of that perspective out of college. And so I'm doing that thing 6 months into it, month into it. I'm one of the top guys in the office. I'm one of the top guys in the country going on these trips, and things were doing really well. And I'm going, wow, this is a really interesting industry. I think this is where my calling is. And then my wife gets a neuromuscular degenerative autoimmune disease, and she ruptures a disc in her lower back. And all of a sudden, I'm a caregiver, and her income is gone, and I'm a caregiver, so the majority of my income is gone because I'm working for 100% commission. And all of a sudden, I get to really, really learn about money. My mom, even though she was an accountant, she didn't teach me anything. I mean, I'm learning little bits about what she planted, but it was never that conversation. This is a profit and loss, or this, things like that. My wife's dad, Bob, he is a CPA. He owned his own practice. I mean, he's worked for these large corporations. What does she know about money? Nothing. So here we are at the brink of divorce every single night. We've lost everything. We're moving in with my in-laws, Bob and Sally. Here we are getting to confront the relationship that we have with each other because of the relationship that we don't have with money. And that whole world, it almost blew up. I look back, I'm like, how did we even stay together? And it's so that we could live through this trauma. And in any size trauma, there's an equal seed of opportunity that then can be planted. That is how I got into this industry, was randomness, trauma that got planted. And now what I do is I help people learn from their past patterns, not theirs. It's their family. It's a gift. Here's a box for you, Anastasia. Here's all our messed up, effed up traumas. Yeah, here's these patterns. And you don't even know it. Goes into your subconscious brain, and then you wonder why you act this way, do this thing. It's because there is a relationship, and it might not be the most successful one. And so diving down into that, for years I was the suit and tie, I'm going to be your financial guy, right? And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, I had this awakening moment, to say the least, and blasted out, had a conversation with my maker, and went, "Nope, you keep getting drawn back into this industry." Because I tried to get out, and it kept
Mm,
clawing me back in. Said, "No, your mission in life is to show people uh, what money is, and it's currency. It's a relationship. It's an exchange, and money is not the root of all evil. It's been rooted in the
mm,
source of all evil."
mm,
And if we're going to transition and transmutate to this higher frequency dimensional plane of existence, we're going to need to understand the emotions of money, because money is currency. It is
Mhm.
the flow. Emotion, energy in motion. E equals mc squared. Energy, motion. So you help people understand money and the emotions of it, and that's the relationship of it, and that is all intertwined. And
mm,
so over the last, gosh, 11, 12, 13 years now that I've been in the industry and been helping people, now my business has shifted completely towards, instead of what I was taught, which was hunt, hunt,
yeah.
fish, it is
Yeah.
now, not even farm. It is to go out there and mentor and teach and grow other individuals how
Mhm.
to grow their farms.
Mm,
So
Mhm.
I'm the mentor of farmers to help allow them the understanding and invite them to showing them how to truly embrace the frequency of prosperity and to truly embrace that. So it's been a very interesting journey. It's really weird for a
Yeah.
lot of people. It's super normal for me. So our relationship, I'll just say it's one of the most important ones now that I have in my life.
And you actually covered a lot of things Anastasia and I talk about,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
is really, really cool.
It's like, well, that's podcast.
But yeah, we Anastasia and I actually talk a lot about how our childhood traumas or our past traumas really affect what happens to us and the decisions that we make now that we're adults. And it's really neat. I've met a lot of business coaches and personal development coaches that really dive into the energy of life and the 5D kind of movement and how our relationship with that affects money. But I've talked to lots of people in the financial industry, and they're almost never talking about the energy
Mm,
of money. They're talking about, yeah. So it was a really neat dynamic to see someone who's in the finance industry talking about the energy of money instead of someone who's on the personal development industry talking about the energy of money. Hugely different, in my opinion. And I think
mm.
it's really cool that this is something you cover. How did you get into that shift out of curiosity?
Yeah, it was a very difficult shift. And I like to relate it to turning around the Titanic in a swimming pool. It was tough.
That sounds
Yeah.
really accurate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because we're going against an industry that is then that could buy and sell the oil industry 11 times over,
Mhm.
that has been doing this for hundreds of years. They have a
Yeah.
tried and true way, and they're still doing the same things that they did in the 80s because it worked, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And now it's like, well, wait a second. If you're going to climb this ladder and you're going to have this career and you're going to keep this your book of business, don't mess it up. Don't say the wrong things. Don't
Mm,
talk about politics. Don't talk about religion. Don't
Mhm.
talk about sex, and don't talk about the relationship of it. Because if anybody does, you're gonna piss somebody off, and they're gonna leave. And
Yeah.
then there goes your commission, and
mm,
your commission breath gets stronger than it already is. So any financial professionals out there, this is what they're going up against. And that's, it doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, if you're a banker, if you're a doctor, if you're anybody shifting over that to speak your truth, that's when your voice starts to shake.
mm,
And
And
that's
I
the that's the strongest recommendation that I have is speak your truth,
yeah.
because it's going to start happening.
And
Because
I think that transfers to a lot of different industries as well, especially now in 2020, 2021.
yeah.
Is that there is a shift happening in how we do business, but there's such this mindset of how it's been done for the last, 40 years now,
Mm,
basically. And but I see a transition. But it is exactly like you said, like turning a Titanic around in a swimming pool because 40 years of habit is really hard to change. So yeah, so keep
Or even hundreds of years considering the
Yeah,
financial
yeah,
industry.
yeah.
yeah.
So, let's kind of dive into that because I think there's a good bridge here because in the financial industry, they're so afraid of losing the sale. Now, as a business owner, there's a lot of fear of losing the sale too, especially when things are tight or you're at, like what you said, you're like every day it was like, are we getting a divorce, right? So there's a lot of tie around success and how that leads to success throughout your whole life. And the fear of not getting those sales really can drive people into their traumas or whatnot. So let's talk a little bit about that because there's a mirror happening with the financial industry and business owners, the fear of losing the sales. So talk a little bit, if you can, talk a little bit about that for those who are listening and are feeling like they have to get the sale, they're feeling the pressure of it. So how can they get more in alignment with working with money and having a good exchange with that relationship rather than feeling like they have to chase it or they have to hunt it, like what you said?
It comes knowing that the end result is guaranteed.
Mm.
It's not an if, it's a when you take this path. And that is the most firm truth that anyone can stand on. You came to this world fully funded, so embrace it. If you are not, guess what? There'll always be an abundance of something. It's either going to be an abundance of lack or an abundance of prosperity. It's your choice. And when I was making this shift, because that's what people need, they're like, all right, cool, there's an end result. And that's when I was a professional tutor back in college for like molecular biochem or organic chemistry. It was like, show people the end result first. It's possible. So lawyers better be stepping up. Doctors better be stepping up. Those people, whatever industry you are in, find those individuals and either reach out to them because we're always willing. Like we're like, oh, finally, we're not alone, right? One more person, right? We've reached them. We've cracked the code. Because when I can duplicate myself, that's when I know I'm doing well. And so what I did is I started with kind of seeding questions with my current conversations with people. There's some vibes that you might get. Back in the day, we would go to people's houses. So if I saw a Buddha there, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, is that Buddha? Or is that this?" I would see cues. Nowadays, it's like, well, this is virtual, that's virtual, and I've been working virtual for years, for 4 years. So it's more difficult to do that. But having an opening up questions, there's the get the know the like factor of this, and with people who are be backs don't buy mindset, you're never going to break it, that code. So if you have the opportunity to have the ongoing relationship, where I did it was on a second or third relationship. And I would ask questions like, so what do you do when you're not doing this stuff? I mean, do you do like stuff like go out and do you do yoga? Do you meditate? Do you ride bikes? I would list things off that they could snag. And if they reached on to, oh yeah, I meditate and I do yoga, I'll go, great.
You're like, my people.
Exactly. And birds of a feather flock together. So what I did is not that I wouldn't focus as hard as getting referrals from my other clients. I would have that intention like, oh, this, and I would tell them, oh my gosh, you are the person, you are my perfect client. You're my soul client. I let them know that. Anastasia, if I told you, which you are, Anastasia, you are my soul client. You are my soul partner. What did you just do there? It hits you. You're like, oh, yeah, that's me. Oh my gosh, that's me. Now I'm making this transition because the finance world is kind of it's got me in a collar. It's got me locked down, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really looking to make this transition, and I could use some help. I'm looking to connect with people exactly like this, that I can talk about blasting off into the astrals. And I could talk about sun gazing at 2:00 in the afternoon by embracing the ultraviolet. Hello, red to purple, which is violet. Ultraviolet is beyond the spectrum that we can see, which is where we're trying to go. Hello, right? I'm looking to talk to those type of people, the clairs, the mystics, the esoteric folk, the shamans. You wouldn't by chance know of anybody who I just need to know, would you? And they would go, "Oh man, do I've got the people for you." And you know
Yeah.
what's interesting, David, you and Anastasia, you said the same thing. We've been looking for someone. We've been looking for. You'll hear that
Mm.
Mhm.
because it's interesting when there's abundance of lies, supply and demand. The value for truth is always supreme. But right around now is when people are going to start searching for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's a wave of seekers. And if you're the only person who puts how to align with prosperity by sun gazing, you're only going to find one guy.
Mhm.
How to spiritually align with the vibration of prosperity. Search it. Who are you going to find? You're going to find, well, me. In the event that it's like, in the event it's like a lawyer. Can I find an aligned lawyer or aligned doctor? Can I
Ooh,
spiritually
snap.
awoke? Yeah, spiritually
Yeah.
awoke doctor in Denver, right?
Yeah. Mm.
And
Mhm.
that's where people are missing it. They're thinking that they are going to be shamed by their network, which they are because
Mm.
you attracted them at your current vibration. And
Yeah.
as you ascend, these people are going to say, no. But guess
Yeah.
what? Yeah,
Well,
go.
it's really neat because I have a lot of conversations with people
Mhm.
about spirituality and hitting that next level. But you're exactly right. Like you're not going to find a doctor who's advertised. Well, it's much more rare to find like a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant or really any industry where they're like,
Super
Higher
uber
services.
professional person,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So that's really a really good point. So keep going with what you're saying.
Yeah,
Sorry,
and they'll
I just
and
got excited.
just know it is all about taking the your map. It's printing it out. It's writing notes of this is what's going to happen. Guess what? Yes, I'm going to lose my network. But guess
Mm.
what? They'll come back when they
Mhm.
awaken.
Mhm.
Wake up.
Mhm.
Like the people, why do you think you met them? Why do you think they're your current network? It's one, it's an energetic place to honor. That's a stepping stone. When you get here, there's a void. The universe abhors vacuums. It's going to fill that with it's the law of mirrors. So
Mhm.
you are what you will attract.
Mhm.
So you're going to get new people. You're going to connect with people who are like you at that point of time that you are attracting. So it's this consistent, persistent, always ascension game. And so
Mhm.
to be afraid of, oh, what are people going to say? They're always going to say something. What they're going to say is, man, I thought you were weird before. Look at you now. And then you're like, oh, I love you too. From a
Yeah,
non
right.
judgmental, fully appreciation place of perspective.
Mhm.
So
And
what I
that's
like
really
about this is, there's this topic, especially Brene Brown. She's really put it out there with this topic of shame and how we all hold a certain shame or traumas, and this carry of weight on our shoulders or in our chest or our stomachs, wherever you want really feeling it. And what I love about you, Trevor, is you've really come into this ascension, but it's really an unashamed place. It's like, this is who I am, and I'm accepting you for who you are and what your needs are and how you view your points of view. Because, like, you really see said doctors and lawyers and so on, and, even entrepreneurs who are feeling like they have to have this certain facade in order to have credibility, right? And so it's this whole like blanket of shame of who you really are, but when really your tribe has been really waiting for you to arrive to help them. And you're trying to fit into a shoebox that you could say over time, society, patriarchy, and just all of those things are trying to put you into that mold when really you were meant for something else, to be free. And so what I love about this is there's this kind of like taking off the veil of shame and just saying, we're here, we're authentic, we're transparent, and we're going to align you with money, and we're going to align your life to be more authentic and more ascended. And so I just really wanted to point that out for those who are listening, is that being afraid that you're not going to be able to help someone, or you really want to attract the tribe that you secretly hide in the closet, maybe coming out of the closet is really the key for your success, per se, in what you're meant to do here. And like you were talking about, you're trying to go get a medical degree and all this, but it kept tying you back to the financial world even when you're trying to escape it once you entered it. Like, you were meant to come to this tribe, you were meant to be in this place in this moment to help these people, and without a veil of shame. And so I just really wanted to celebrate that and really point that out to the listeners and watchers.
Oh my gosh. And if you are not honoring your story,
Mm.
then where are you going to hang all of your medals that the
Yeah.
universe provides to you?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what, this shameful place that you place your sacraments of lack? Like, what is that? I mean,
Mm.
you put out there what you get back. That's the story, people. That's what we come here for. You choose that family specifically so you can walk through the valley of hell, so that you can look back and say, oh, and put it out there with that divine masculine and divine feminine coming in. You waited for it, you moved with it all that time. It is that divine alchemy moment of taking those emotions. Why would you shame
Mm.
those events that brought you to who you are? Because question, if you truly are looking to, I'm just going to trigger people here real quick because that's what
Ooh,
I do.
Yeah, let's
Questions of
trigger.
money. So forget manifestation. That's actually a plot to have you never get it what it is that what you want in your life. Manifestation is coming. The world of the vibration of prosperity is here, is actualization. So let's just throw manifestation back where it belongs, which is the pit of hell where it came from. So when we're looking to actualize, we need to actually see with our real eyes from a non-judgmental perspective of source and say, isn't that interesting?
Mm.
Look at what she did. Look at what he did. Look at that story. Just like you were in a movie theater watching that horrible part. Like, it's going to turn around any day. I just know it. I'm leaning in. I'm on the edge of my seat, right?
Mhm.
And if we're judging that, like, what are you going to do if you see a crappy movie, you're judging it, you're like, I'm out of here. Well,
Mm.
you're walking out on the rest of your life. Because if you're looking at it, you might not like it, and that's okay to have that feelings. I don't appreciate this. I would far more prefer. I would far more prefer something else. I prefer to get to the end result. Well, yeah, well, you're still halfway up the mountain. You've got a ways to go. What's the journey? Because
Mm.
if you don't, if you start shaming that next step, you're gonna fall. You're gonna slip. You're gonna go back down. And if you are, and when you are, it's not if, it's a when, it's a requirement to embrace from a non-judgmental perspective of fully accepting and appreciation and honoring where you are. That is the essence of godliness. Because I got to tell you, if you're shaming your past, you're shaming yourself. And if you're shaming yourself, do you have unconditional love for yourself? And if you don't, how's that manifestation going? Pretty good, I would imagine. Probably getting some random things here, seeing some angel numbers, getting this or that, maybe getting that client. But you will always live that excess potential life of it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's crashing.
Mhm.
It's good, it's good, it's good, it's crashing. And you will always have that perpetual pendulum of existence, because a pendulum like this, moving forward through time,
Mm.
turned from a different perspective of reality, is simply a roller coaster.
Right.
Mhm.
Ooh, that was a good analogy. I like
Yeah,
that.
I love it.
Told you this was going to be a deep interview.
Yeah.
I told you this was going to be awesome.
So one question I have, because again, this is the podcast where we normalize how we just have no idea what we're doing. Can you give us an example of your journey where you were transitioning from kind of what society expected from you, and maybe a specific example of a painful time where you were trying to jump into this new, more authentic version of yourself, and maybe you got rejected, pushed through anyways, or you had to come back and push through in a different way?
Hmm. I love that word push through, because it will not work in this context.
Mhm.
It won't. This is something that I learned, and that was that I got to relearn and relearn that when I tried to push through,
Mhm.
it just didn't work. I tried to
Okay.
force those conversations. I tried to find a way in with this person. Like, oh,
Yeah.
if I could find a way to relate with them, they'll like me more.
Mm.
Mhm.
Lack anchoring, right?
Mhm.
I let it flow. really what I did is I let my energy ascend to the level that went to the end of their comfort zone.
Mhm.
And then what I found is that on that edge of that end of that comfort zone, I was willing to look at myself from a non-judgmental perspective and say, see, I can mention the word meditation. I can mention the word awareness. I can mention the word awake, or I can tell people, yeah, I love, sunrises and sunsets. I can kind of breach on those topics and not force, because a lot of people in business word, it's the hustle. It's
Mhm.
the hunt, it's the kill, it's the drive. Well,
Mhm.
it's the hunt and the kill and the drive of you and your soul. That's the game that's been set up, and you don't even know the game that you're playing, nor the rules of said game that was set up to perpetually eat off the energies of your heart. So let's
Mhm.
talk about what real money is, and how this is really going to be a benefit to you is surrender. The
Mhm.
exact opposite. You know what? Hey, this is how I do business, and it might resonate with you or not. But before we get started, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about me and
Mhm.
why we're truly connected today. I start off with my conversations like that because people go, "Wow, I really appreciate your authenticity." And they either may or may not agree with they might be religious, or they might be an atheist, or they might not like tacos. It doesn't matter to me.
Mhm.
Whatever it might be, well, maybe not tacos. With
There's a
with
line.
with that, there's a line. No, and there's always a line of truth, and that's what's so important, is to be able to speak our truth. And if we're not, then what is known is that we're creating excess potential for us to crash in the future.
Is
Because
there a
Mhm.
I is there a time that you can remember that you ever got rejected for speaking your truth, whether from a client or a coworker?
No, no, and this is the thing that in back in those days, I was tiptoeing. And I
Mhm.
would, because what I would do, I would tiptoe a little bit, and I had some mentors, so I would go tell them what I did, and they'd go, "Oh, that's great. Is that all that you did?" Oh, like more of like, "I'm surprised you didn't do more, Trevor. I'm surprised you didn't do more, because you would have got the same results if you kind of stepped out there, man. You
Mhm.
got wings. You're flapping them 1,000 miles an hour. You tried to get 1 inch off the ground. Great. You would have been just successful if you would have jumped off that cliff. So what are you waiting for?" And I kept having those moments over and over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Did I not meet with the person that saw me and didn't reach out to me? I have no idea. But I got to tell you, those people who keep reaching after me and looking for me and seeking, saying, "Come to me," that is exponentially growing every single day. So people who are like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if," and I don't know if I could be that only person, or a very small class of people who are able to do this in this very highly profitable niche. Wait a
Mhm.
second. I don't know if I could niche myself out that much, because I heard that in riches there are niches, and I'm not quite sure if I'm valued at that much for myself. So this is where it really comes down to the personal conversation of the relationship that you have with yourself, because the bank account is simply an external representation of how you feel inside. And if
Mhm.
you are not feeling that prime essence of your own vibration and are digging on it, well, guess what? There is an abundance of space in your bank account. Now, it can be shifted by simply looking at yourself in the mirror and expressing these words: "I love you. I accept you. I appreciate you. I don't even know you yet. I'm so looking forward. I'm enticed. I'm intrigued. I'm so curious with the effervescent joy energy that comes off from a children. You just get around them. They just like, shoo, it just comes off like diffusion, like children, 3 and 6 year old. I watch them. That's was my biggest ascension moments, is watching them be so curious, because all they do all day long is find out what they like. And where did we lose that? I'll tell you what. The connection was severed when we internalized everything that the game wanted us to
Mm.
internalize.
Mm.
Mhm.
And it is our mission of why we are here, why we picked up that and heard that clarion call and said, yes, Gaia, I will be here and I will move forward with this, that we specifically chose that place on that map with that family, with that tree, with those patterns, with those belief systems to come out of the gates of hell to say, yes, this is the path of the ascension.
Mm.
And you suckers didn't believe me. But isn't that always interesting? The rags to riches story is always overnight, and as soon as you get there, everybody wants to be there.
Oh
So
yeah.
who doesn't want that story? Who doesn't want that story? We all want. Anybody watching this is wanting that story. And then you tell me you're shaming where you are.
One thing I want to highlight that you said that I kind of want to bring to a different way of saying it for our listeners is that you were talking about you know, when David asked, is there a specific time that you were rejected? And you're like, no, there's kind of these people like, oh, not yet. And there's this ebb and flow happening with those people. And there's probably even today are still ebbing and flowing, a lot of them. And I like how you said that because I've been rejected in terms of not getting the sale hundreds of times, no joke. But it's interesting with this ebb and flow that you mentioned, because even though they said no at that time, there is still an ebb and flow happening between me and those hundreds of people I talk to, whether it's they still follow me on social media, they come to the podcast now, or they became my clients later on, which is very true. And so I like this ebb and flow where it's like, it's not an immediate yes or no answer. Sometimes it's just a delayed action. And this ebb and flow is really important to respect and honor, that you continue these relationships with people and really just an act of love, rather than be like, oh, you said no, my fear is kicking in, I'm going to move on and do the hustle. Right. And so I really liked kind of how you said that. That's how I interpreted it, was this ebb and flow with relationships with people you've talked in your past, and how you are still having those relationships today, even though maybe you're not talking to them on a daily basis. It's still ebb and flowing, and there's always a way to circle that relationship back at a higher ascension than it was before.
It's a not yet.
Mm.
It's a not yet. And it is looking at it from that, since we're going to dive into the fifth dimensional and beyond perspective, it is in this third dimensional plane of the duality, it's give and take.
Yeah.
It's give and take.
Mm-hmm.
In fifth dimensional, it's give unconditionally and surrender to what is. If I put out my hands like this in this three-dimensional plane, which hand is giving and which is receiving? Energetically, you're supposed to give with your right. You're supposed to receive from your left. In the fifth dimensional, it's give with both and receive with both.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are not giving to ourselves from our highest perspective and giving all of our true authentic self, then we are not going to be receiving that, and we're going to be still receiving what it is that we're receiving. And so by leaning into that and testing it out, because people are people and they either will or they won't. I've lost hundreds and thousands of sales and opportunities when I was 3Ding it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the suit and tie guy. What am I now? I got something else to blame? No. Come on, I could blame it on any Tuesday or some guy driving in front of it before, but really what it comes down to is, how am I resonating with that person? They always tell you, they got to know you, they got to like you, they got to trust you. And they never knew you.
Yeah. Mic drop.
Yeah.
One thing that you mentioned in some of your other interviews that I wanted to bring up, because I think it's a really important concept that a lot of people don't have the answer to, but you have a pretty neat explanation for it. So what is money?
Yeah. So like I said, your bank account is an external, keyword, representation of how you feel inside.
Mm-hmm.
And
before you go in to answer it, and just for our listeners so that they can think about this, I want our listeners to think about the answer to that question as I ask it. Because this was a turning point in my life when someone asked me that question, what is money?
Ooh.
And it's a lot of us we've never asked that question in our entire life and never even considered it. Yeah. So for the listeners, think about that.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of people going to be going, oh, well, it's a route of exchange and it just makes things easier and yada, yada, yada. And that's what I make and all this. And the reality of it, though, now is that your money is a literal representation of debt. Every single dollar on this planet was borrowed from the mafia and circulated. So literally, you're circulating lack. So good on you. Go get more of that.
Can you explain that a little
Yeah.
bit more? Just because that might be a little out of what
Esoteric,
people
yeah.
Yes.
understand.
So there's a great documentary if anybody wants to go into it. The Masters of Money and or the Money Masters. I got to remember which is the Money Masters. I believe it's the Money Masters. And this is something that's been going on for 400 years plus. And the governments have choices. They can choose to print that money. In Lincoln's day, they chose to print money and got out of debt, and the economy was better than it ever has been. Shortly after that, he got shot because he went away from the borrowing system that was set up, and which is the reason why people got in boats, went across the ocean, risked their life to start a new colony across the ocean. It's because they no longer wanted to be taxed. They no longer wanted to be subservient to their slave masters on this interesting planet that we are in. They wanted to be sovereign beings. And then, by route of some interesting individuals, JP Morgan and all of his cronies,
Subtle.
it started the Reserve, the Federal Reserve, which is nothing more than a private bank that prints money. Huh, that's interesting. You're telling me that if a bank printed money, any other bank that you're banking with, that would be okay? No, it wouldn't. That would be counterfeit. That would be federal crimes. But it's okay for the Fed to do it because they're the Fed. Now, there's been a few presidents, all with assassinations attempts on them, that have tried to get away from that system. So just knowing what the system is, the game that you're playing, Money Masters, go check it out. It's about three-hour documentary. It will give you the system that has created a multiple societies who have literally gotten away from it and been beaten back into submission from the world that we live in now.
And once again, I want to point out the fact that you work in the finance industry. This is where you make your living. And again, this is a perspective that I hear from people not in the finance industry all of the time, and the crazy conspiracy theorists and the fringe, whatever. But I mean, it's really just historical. Yeah. There's nothing like conspiracy theorist about it at this point. Now there's just fact. But a lot of people don't listen to it. And especially, it's really not, you don't hear people in the finance industry discussing this typically. So it's really neat to hear you say it. So keep going. Tell us a little more.
Yeah, because we'll maybe get into my mission on the planet of how I'm here to help transcend and ascend the energy of money and really what it is. Because the reason why they have us chasing something external is because it is the other side of the coin of what we're supposed to be focusing on. So question, let's break down words. I love words. When I was younger, I was told I was dyslexic because I was having a little issues reading. So I never actually read a book until I was 25. My first book that I read was Harry Potter.
Nice.
And,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I was in South America. It was great. And all these things happened into our life because when I was dyslexic, I hated words. And now the pendulum has swung. All that other energy. Now I'm like, I love words. Let's study this word. Let's think about this word. Where did this root word come from? Yeah. Competition. Oh, yeah, let's you and me, we're going to compete. No, we're not. Compadre. It's togetherness. You and I aren't competing. We are competing. Let's go. And yet they steal this word. It's like amazing.
Oh, it's competition, amazing. Companion, compadre.
Yeah.
Compadre.
Right.
So it's like, it's amazing. Really?
Compromise.
Yeah. Do you really want to be in a maze? Do you really want to be in a maze? Oh my gosh. So let's think about money. Money.
Okay.
So if we're focusing on something external, we're chasing something external. So the idea is that, because what is true wealth? What you want, where you want, when you want, who you want, with as long as you want. I gotta tell you, when God, Jesus, Source, Spirit, Buddha, Gandhi, all those higher dimensional esoteric beings from other galactics, forces, whatever, have got my back, that's wealth. And
Mm.
how are you actually going to connect with that wealth and that prosperity if this is turned off? You have chosen to cut that off, to cut off your connection to source. So how are you supposed to be ever have the feeling of ever being prosperous if you have cut off your soul connection to true abundance and wealth? So there's a lot of people going, well, wait. I was told money. Well, wait a second. Now you're that guy who's sitting on the couch meditating all day for his clients. Bullshit.
Yeah.
I work smart. People would look at me and go, how do you work that much? And I'll go, I'm not working. I'm divinely inspired, and I have a generator within my heart that fills me at
Mm.
all hours of the day.
Mm.
What are you
And
doing?
for our listeners, I just want to point out that you made a really good distinction between wealth is a very specific feeling and state of being,
Mm.
which is separate from actual money.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge separation that not a lot of people consider. They link them together, but they are two very different things.
Mm. You know, that's another key word, is that relative, right? Because even though you're going, you know, they're going, wait, but money. And it's like, you can see this happen all the time over and over again, wherever you're finding these stories in the news or in the Inquirer, whatever. But someone will get super rich from whatever random thing that happened on the internet, or
Viral TikTok.
viral TikTok video, or they got the movie role or whatever it may be. And now they're super wealthy. They blinged out house, the crib, the car, the necklace, whatever it may be. And they have all this money in the world, yet they're still completely unhappy because they don't have a wealth of love within them that can actually connect with others and really serve. And so it's so funny, because I would talk to people in the past and they would be like, oh, I want to have the house, I want to have the car, I want stability, I want to feel powerful. And I said, so you want that Escalade, a pimped out Escalade and the grill and all that stuff, because you want to feel powerful. You don't want the Escalade for the sake of the Escalade. You want the Escalade because it makes you feel powerful when you're driving it. Know the difference. And so thanks for pointing that out, David. And thank you, Trevor, for really showing a difference between 3D money and 5D wealth and abundance, because there is a complete different value point to that as well.
And that, when you get that, don't get me wrong, uh, with the wealth from the wealthy of doing what you want and enjoying your life, money, the ability to spend money is part of that equation. I'm not shaming money, and there's a lot of
Right.
um, individuals, especially in the manifestation world, that want you to think that it comes from sitting and meditating. And really what that is it's ignoring. You're in a place of ignorance. You are attracting more opportunities to ignore your finances. You are literally attracting those feelings, those jobs, those things. And when you find
Patterns.
when you find wealth, it's like a child who just can't put down said activity. That's where we find our wealth. That's our joy spot. And our joy spot leads us, and we got multiple, and they're always changing. And I know this, Anastasia, I've seen your business change and bloom and blossom and spring and fall, and you've seen things the same thing with me. It's consistently moving. That's because we are as well. And by following that and being okay that, oh my gosh, I'm a multidimensional being, and they want me to work one career and one job for the rest of my life. Ugh, exactly.
Yeah.
Wake up, starseed, plant your source trauma and grow it. Son, why don't you? And so get out there and find those joy spots that will naturally lead you to this place. And you've got the divine feminine, which is waiting to see if something is going to intrigue you, entice you. Women like that attract me towards you. Don't chase me, attract you towards me. Like, show me what you got, dance for me, boys, right? Like, show me what, it's the birds, right? They're all showing what they got. The divine feminine's like, yeah, I've seen you last week. What else? Okay. Now that divine masculine's coming in. Now there's a difference between this current show of I wouldn't even call it masculinity. I would call it inner damaged children walking around that are parading as adults, and they need to be put back into grade school. That's what I would say for the majority of patriarchs out there that have not fully, and women. You have a half of you that is also sectioned off for divine masculine. So this also
Mm-hmm.
goes for you as well, because there's a lot of things that I talk to, especially about anger, frustration, aggression, those types of feelings. Well, those are feelings and those are emotions. So if you're shaming those, then you're also shaming essential elements of alchemy. And if you are truly going to embrace prosperity and wealth, then it's about time to start embracing those. Because if your GPS system is missing, let's just say, bridges. Oh, can't go across this road, it's got a bridge. Can't go through that part of life, it's going to anger me. Can't go through this part of life, it's going to frustrate me. You ain't ever going to get to where you're going to go, and you're never going to
Mm.
have what it is that you're meant to have. You have a purpose here, you have an optimum timeline, you have a mission. And there is this element where there's the weight, like, because we all want to go, like, just give it to me. Surrender to the weight, surrender to the growth. It's not that it's saving money doesn't create wealth. The habit of saving money creates wealth. The habit, that's
Mm.
the habit.
Mm.
Now, once you find something, then you just can't put it down. Now, that's the divine masculine going in there. That the divine masculine waits. He drives forward or he protects home.
Mm.
Right now, there's a lot of good reasons for the divine masculine to come out, to protect and to be angry and to be mad, because a sovereign being has been stolen from, according to natural law, has every right to take back with whatever means necessary, and that is aligned with all sources of the source that is the source.
Mm.
And so things are happening now, and you are not at a place of wealth and prosperity and abundance. It is the actualization of, are you pushing when you need to be waiting? Are you
Mm.
waiting when you need to be going? Are you actually in a place of a child that can do this? And if you are scared little child in what you're doing, then are you doing the inner child work? Are you doing the shadow work? Are you doing it the way that is going to look down into it, like your fear tests at night when you're kind of trembling right before you go to sleep, into not even the dreamland, it's the true awake land. But are you sleeping while you dream? And how you do anything is how you do everything.
Mm.
So if you sleep in your dreams, are you sleeping when you're awake?
Yeah.
So if you're not awake when you sleep, so if you're awake while you sleep and you're able to get out there and lucid dream and you're out there, then you have more control here. And how are you able to do that? It's from your wealth factory.
Hmm.
And so there's all these elements of aspects of universal laws, not metaphysical, esoteric mumbo jumbo, that 98% of the stuff out there is lies
Mm.
in every industry,
Mhm.
including
Mm-hmm.
the woo woo.
Right.
And
Mhm.
That's a whole nother discussion. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
where there are a lot of individuals that did happen with, that's great. There's a lot of bad people that they got wealth too. So there's going to be the outliers with everything, but we're talking about the vast majority of people. If they took some time to really rekindle what it is that they like, bring a joy spot into their life, what you appreciate, it will grow. Start off with one, start off with 5 minutes, start off with an hour, start off with 2 days a week, something, do something that invites you the opportunity. And then what that happens, it will expand. You will you will start attracting in those people through, because the law of attraction is a real thing. Though I would far rather teach people the law of compensation, which is serve the masses unconditionally without expectation, and surrender and appreciate all sources of aligned profit, not income, profit that come back to you, and honor every step along the way.
With that, you mentioned give, and all of your courses that you have, you offer at no cost, if I'm correct. Is that right?
You are correct. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about how you made that decision, And because I think that ties into kind of what you were just talking
A lot of people, they're like, well, Anastasia, you did this for years, coaching entrepreneurs and solopreneurs and millennials and all that. And I'm sure the conversation came up of, you need to increase your prices. You need to
Yeah.
increase your
Oh
prices.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, no, I just want to give it away. You wanted them to go up and they wanted to go down. Now here it is. Why did they want to do that? It's not because it is because they don't value them, but really inside that connection with our heart realizes that money means nothing except it was created out of the darkness that is here. It was monopolized. It's been taken. Okay, if it's not a greenback, it's on the negative side.
Mhm.
So in realizing all of this, I discovered ways that I could give away my best content, my best courses, my best everything, my financial education. You want to call me up? You want to buy stuff on my website? Good luck. There ain't that. But guess what? I align with things that I love. I align with things that I do that do cost money. So I'm a connector. I connect people. Really, I connect people and they don't realize it. And I tell people that this happens. So of course they do. But when people go from point A to point B, without skimming anything off of that person's value that they're receiving, that individual who is now getting their soul client, perfect client, whatever, they're more than happy to give me a referral fee for that, or a commission, or finder's fee, or whatever. There's so many individuals that would far more rather pay you versus pay per click off of Google, or whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Also, this is the other thing of and this can be applied everywhere. So trust me, this is not just with finance. But if you are you're a massage therapist, you're an acupuncturist, you're whatever it might be, a homeopathy professional. There's always something that person is going to need to take home that isn't yours, that is going to need to be purchased and bought. And guess what? You can literally give away everything that you paid for your education, and now shift that into giving unconditionally, putting it so it's evergreen on videos like this, because podcasts are great information and they're also advertisements. There's money being made somewhere. Dave's like, yeah, you bet I'm making money. That's the deal. You're making money, but what we're doing is we're giving away value for people.
Absolutely.
We're not giving it away for free. We're doing this at no charge, which is different. Because we're not creating an excess potential energy that can create a pendulum and put us down again into the state of lack, where some entity, I'm not going to say someone, I'm going to say an entities will then be able to suck that life force out of us. So, because we're not paying attention to our heart and our mana, right? Because we've got something else, we're focusing on something else. Wow, I just got totally off track with that.
That was good though. Preach it.
And we like it. That's our whole thing with this, which is great. We don't know what we're doing.
So what I found and what I teach in the Embrace Prosperity Mastermind group is to say, hey, let's take your number one thing that you make money with, and I'm going to show you how to give that away for the rest of your life, because you're a Reiki master and you really never wanted to charge for your services anymore. I'm going to show you how to do that. You are a shaman and you want to do this. You are an author. You are whatever. It literally doesn't matter. I want to show you how. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have to buy something, you can't be going and giving it away for free. That's putting you at a deficit. That's putting you on a pendulum. I'm saying something that you create, creator, because creators create. I'm not afraid that if God's going to look back and go, oh, I created that and now nobody's going to buy it? No. Are you kidding me? Serve unconditionally without expectation. And that power never got taken away, because I don't know about your kids, but I want my kids to be better than me. I never want them to be less than me. So if we're God's children, right, that same energy vein is within us, right? It was just hypnotized out of us. So
I want to point that out too for our listeners, because I think that's powerful, and that's something that I run into a lot with clients. You said creators create, and that's something that's so inherent in an entrepreneur. Like we love creating things, we love fixing things, we love looking at problems and figuring out how to change it. And if we create a course or a seminar or a book, but one thing I run into with a lot of clients is that they're so scared of someone else finding what they've created and copying it and then reselling it. And they're like, I never want this to happen, so I'm going to restrict it and hide and not give it out. That is that lack mentality, right? And so I love what you say, like create it, give it out. You're going to create something else. And the more you give and the more you create and the more you help people, the more that's going to come.
Well, and more so on that, David, is that that idea was never yours in the first place anyway.
Absolutely.
That's a move on the chessboard that was set up before any move was ever go. When you play a computer game of chess, all moves have already been played. Those thoughts that we think we're getting are those are the moves on the chessboard. You were simply that antenna that resonated with that specific frequency and downloaded that. So shame on you for thinking it was yours. Silly person. You silly human. No shame here. Oops, we just didn't know. Right? Oops, we didn't know. Silly me. It was never your idea. Nothing is ever your idea. It was your expression of the idea. And that's the beautiful part of this. You express your creation. Let's paint the same tree. I would never. That's your idea of painting. Come on now. Let's not get in that game. Create it and keep moving so that when people look back, they'll look at you and say, point at you and say, you were the inspiration. Hey, let me take the cat out of the bag. 10 years, I looked at Anastasia Button and she was doing this thing. Nobody else was doing it. And I never had the guts to tell, but now I'm Hare and I want to give credit where credit is due. She was doing said thing. And now boom, that person who stole your idea is now playing business at you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, if you don't create it and move on and get it out there and put it out to the world, you have no more space in your hard drive to get new downloads from the universe. So get it out, get it out, get it out and bring it in.
That's the key that I love is if you don't let it go, you can't get something new.
Yeah.
Which again goes into money. And this is something I saw you talk about in another interview as well. And the first time I ever heard it was from Dave Ramsey. And it was such a powerful quote that I've never heard before. But basically Dave Ramsey's quote was, he said that all the money in the world doesn't belong to any of us. It's actually God's money. And you can substitute that with, whichever for our listeners, universe's money. We're just allowed to caretake it for a little while. So if we're good with it, we'll get more. If we're bad with it, we'll get less. And you said it in a different way, I believe, but it ties into if you're not willing to let it go, you're not going to get more.
That plays into, I feel, life, right? If you're not willing to let it go, you can't get something more, And so I think it's interesting play of surrender and receive, right? And it's a very interesting play with that flow. And money is just a term and a product we've created in this 3D world to kind of, I guess you could say what did you call it? It was not the veil, but you were cutting off the money, right? And when you cut off the money, now you have to be in this 3D world and you're hustling. And I like how everything's always a hustle, a hunt, a fish. It's very masculine. It's like we're in that hunter-gatherer area. But it's always this energy to go and seek and find instead of wait and receive. And you can even see that in seasons with, winter to summer and spring to fall. It's like there's this ebb and flow with everything, but you're so intent on blowing forward, especially with the money piece of it, because you have this interesting vision that's not even yours and authentic. It's been painted for you that you think you need to go after. And so you miss the ebb and flow, you miss the surrender and receive, and you just feel the need to hustle and blow, even though there's pieces of that you should bring into your life, but not 24/7 all day long. And then you kind of look back and you go, I wasted my life just chasing money when I should have been loving and giving and providing and receiving from others. And so thank you so much for being on the podcast with today, Trevor. I think that not only do David and I get blown away, every time I talk to you, I get blown away, but our listeners, I'm sure, are just going like, oh my gosh. So there's something that we do towards the end of every episode is David and I ask each other, and I would like to ask you too this question. What was something that you learned, resonated, or really you're going to take away from this conversation you had today?
Mine was I look for confirmation moments. I look for advantage moments where things don't go right, and I say, advantage, the other side of the coin is being flipped. I also look for confirmation moments that my optimum timeline is either coming towards me or have shifted to a timeline, because that's really what all that manifestation or actualization is shifting onto a timeline in the multiverse where a set item or experience or person already exists. So it's really quantum physics. We can go completely science and never talk about esoteric or energetic. Now, what you said at the very beginning was a confirmation to me. This is, I feel that I have yet to truly embrace and step out into my full fabulousness. And with what you said about this is what we talk about, this is what we focus about. We focus on the prosperity of money, the emotions of money, how do we connect with money? And I'm thinking here going like, where is my voice? Why am I not speaking more about this? I've got my YouTube channels. I've got my conversations on my social media platforms. But where's my book? Where's my blog? Where's my podcast? Where's that? And that was my takeaway is how small am I playing? And I'm sitting here telling other people to get out of their box.
Ooh, love the authenticity and transparency. Yeah.
That was it. And I'm starting to cry. That means I'm seventh dimensional beyond. Because when I hit that, like, it's like, it's going to hurt. It's like, I start to cry and I'm just like, it's like I've reached the edge. That's the leading edge of creation for me. Now, the next question is, am I going to jump? Which is what's that next divinely, and confirmation in my right ear, because that's the divine masculine side. When I hear the ring on the divine, it's time to move. When I hear it on my left, it's time to listen. And so this is me saying, oh my God, I ascended to that level of this is your next move. And now my divine masculine, you were talking about that, always time to hustle, always time to hustle. Anastasia, when is the time to hustle? The time to hustle is when inspirate, in with the spirit. And my takeaway is being divinely inspired to take action from an aligned divine masculine perspective. So I'm honored by this gift. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that was a very good answer.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's great. So now, David, what was the one thing that you learned or will take away from this conversation?
So I think my biggest takeaway, our next level as far as, a society is really, no matter what industry it is, even if it's a very traditional and very conservative industry, expressing your most authentic self in not just how you interact as a person, but through your marketing and through your messaging. So whether it's a doctor who really in their personal life is really big into yoga, or whether it's I say accountant because that's the most like conservative, like traditional conservative, or like a lawyer who loves yoga. Like, how cool would it be to be like yoga lawyer?
That'd be so cool.
That is someone I would be attracted to more than any other lawyer that's out there, because they're also in this box that's always been the box. And I would love to see people step out in their own industry into their own passions and their most, even their spiritual or their next level self.
That's good. I have a great picture of a yoga lawyer in my head now.
Yeah, like in a tie.
That's the standard now. that's the minimum for me, guys. If you want to get hired, I love it.
And Anastasia, what about yourself? What's your number
So
one?
I have so many takeaways, and this always happens. I've known Trevor for 5 years ish.
Something like that.
Something like that, yeah. And we've had many conversations, and we always seem to dive deep, which is great. And so I think my big takeaway is the ebb and flow of things. even though I've heard that before, I've felt it before, it's never been fully actualized in words that I've heard and internalized. And so I've really taken that away today with the ebb and flow, because I myself have been diving into this active flow and this place of flow a while now, maybe 2 years or more. And it hasn't been as, I guess you could say, smooth, or it hasn't been as natural as it has been in the last couple months, really. And it's definitely been because I've been diving into the shadow work. And Trevor and I, we spoke last month actually a little bit about that, and really just diving into shadow work and allowing that to happen, when before it would be like, no, everything's fine. Like, everything's fine. Let's just ignore that, right? And it's for those who are listening, take it from someone like me, doing that for too long can really tear you to pieces, and in not a way that serves you. And so really going into the flow of the pendulum, as you were saying, kind of the fall and the rise and the fall and the rise, is very important work to lean into, and to continue that in my life. And for those who are listening, maybe to inspire you to also continue that or enter into it into your life, is helpful. So thank you, Trevor, for this awesome conversation on I Don't Know What the Fuck I'm Doing podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yes.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Last, how can our audience find out more information about you?
Simple way, my name, social media, check it out, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Really present on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube is the biggest one. And the easiest place is to go to Tortoise, like the turtle, Hare, Tortoise and Hare. So Hare like the rabbit, Tortoise and Hare membership. It's a no charge membership, because we're not talking about excess potential energy here. It is a no charge membership where you'll get all of my courses. You'll get all of my services. You can get in, that'll show you how to get into the Embrace Prosperity Mastermind. And if you go to Tortoise and Hare Tools, I'll give away a $10,000 course that'll show you how to get all of your content on the first page of Google and YouTube, and actually any search engine instantaneously. So, because that's what I do. I actualize timelines where I'm like, oh, my video exists on the first page in the quantum. There it is. And that's what I do. And that's what I teach people how to do. So.
Nice.
Perfect.
Awesome.
And we'll be putting all those links in our show notes for our listeners to see.
Wherever that is.
On that part of the thing that you're on.
Well, yeah, it's everywhere technically until they look, and then it's exactly where they look, because we're,
exactly. There you go.
Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So just look, it's there.
Perfect.
So I feel like I'm talking to I feel like you're like the big guru in my world. You're like the big yogi that sits on top, like floating above the rocks. And I'm over here just like, what is happening? But every time I learn more and more, and I start to get to that place too. So I'm excited. Thanks for guiding us today, Trevor. I appreciate it.
Well, if you ever want to find me, just start looking at the sun. You'll vibrate, and you'll hear me and feel the energy that I've been grounding for anybody for years. And I'll be waiting, because there's more. This is the tip of the iceberg.
Love it.